Ancient Egyptian god Thoth. Most people know him as being the progenitor of language and writing, and he's an Egyptian, and signified always by having the bird head on him. But a lot of people don't know that Thoth is actually the Phoenician name, and not even the Egyptian name. The Egyptian name is Dati, Dhwty, I believe, and Dati. And Thoth actually comes from taught us. You just take the us off the end of anything Greek that's written later, of course, though, and it's taught. And we actually get two concepts out of this in modern linguistics and thought patterns, because Thoth is meant to mean taught, as if I taught something to someone. The original monkey see, monkey do. I can do this, so can you. And instead of having the elite and only a small percentage knowing knowledge, it was the giving to the people that changed humanity, that brought about what we have today. Rather than a few people keeping knowledge, they spread it out to quite a few, and then some of those quite a few shone enough to adapt it to a further point, that it kept evolving much more rapidly and more finite and more precise than it ever would have had it been something that was, like the Bible originally, kept from people and just spoken to you, but you don't get to see it or read it or try to figure it out. Whenever that form of life changed, right there, you can see in a short amount of time in our history now from that point how human evolution has really changed. And what changed it before, from being primordial man to being the most civilized of men, were things that were like languages, where instead of having an old ideogram where you could show one picture and then tried to have a discussion about it, the new idea of an alphabet would be to have individual letters making up the concept of a word. And then that concept of a word would have a meaning behind it, as well as the representative of a certain object. And so it's another level, definitely. Rather than having three pictures on a wall and going, we take stick, we chase bull, or something, and trying to pull that across. You can actually have the entire thing out. And it's not really brought about by Egyptians. It ends up being brought about by Phoenicians, the sea people that everyone knows about. And you can see Thoth brought about in a lot of things. This coin right here, which shows you the ophthalmos. It's the egg wrapped by the serpent, and this is his symbol in that area. And because he crushed the egg of life that busted and made the Milky Way in life, if you look at their pantheon and the way things are looked at. And you can see this extremely Greekish Caucasian man here, who is the king of Tyre. So this is the one in the Bible that's supposed to be so Arabic looking and stuff, but it's not. But this is Trebonius Gallus, so he's one of the Gallai priests. And Galatians in the Bible is written about these people here. And then you have the Sea of Galilee, which actually never really existed until 300 or 400 AD, and they started calling it that from the Bible being called that, because actually it was Lake Tiberias before that. And from primordial times, that's the way people have known it. And it never really was the Sea of Galilee, as per se. But things changed around through that time, though, definitely. And there's a large span where languages are developed out. And ancient Hebrew is nothing more than a mocking, again, of ancient Phoenician script. Most scholars can tell you that if you go back far enough, it's pretty hard to tell the difference between ancient Hebrew, which is this, and ancient Phoenician. And I have a presentation here that a guy did, and it's about 25 minutes long, and it shows you how they've come up with the different scripts, the letters, the sounds, how water was originally an sound, and so was feminine. That's how we get mama and things like that out of. And I just know it's going to be a huge long video if I continue with this, just due to the amount that I've been through. But if you want truth that, Thoth is Phoenician, Here's what I was speaking of earlier, because Thoth is in ancient Egypt, and he's Thoth, or Tahuti. He was Dauti, see, an Egyptian scribe and historian of the gods. But he was Tatos of Bablos. Even whenever they show it on their walls, they tell you that he was from Bablos, that he was a Phoenician, and he was the precursor of Egyptians' Thoth, the guy that took it to another level. You could look at this as always being one person, but in reality, it was somebody who passed on this idea. The one that was teaching was Tatos. He was the one that was taught. And that teaching came on stronger and stronger, and it became what's known as the Hermetical teachings. And of course, that's a Greek thing with Hermes, but really, it actually goes back to Egyptians also, because he was known as Hermes there also, with an epitaph of Egyptian on top of it. So let's see. Let me show you this here. And this is original language. It's a German man who wants to break it down for you, and it's pretty much what I would have tried to get out, but he is a teacher, does it much better than I. I'll try to rarely break in if I feel a need to during it, but he does well.
Alright, hello everybody. This is Very Martin Keitel, and today I would like to talk with you a little bit about language. And not just a specific language that is spoken, some language that we know, but we are speaking about something that I could say is the original language. Because I believe that originally there was only one language, and this was not like the languages that are spoken and written and taught in schools today in different countries. Now, if you think about language, what is language? We need to separate clearly what is spoken language, which I'm doing now, and what is written language. Because although written language is or can be spoken when you read the symbols that are on a paper or on a computer screen, but if you look at the written language alone, it is really just markings, graphical, visual symbols that is it is a tool to put down and memorize something that is originally spoken word, or at least used to be before the age of all this information that comes in the computer age. And spoken word, spoken language is about sound. Apparently, it is about sound. Now, when we learn current languages, we don't really ever discuss what is the meaning of sound. We are just discussing what is the meaning of the words and sentences made of letters. And letters, when they are put into your mouth, they are phonetic sounds, consonants and vowels mostly. No actual attention is paid to the meaning of the actual sounds.
But he tries to break it down for you a little bit here, and it's basics of phonetics. And you wonder why we call it phonetics, and it's because of this exact fact.
Now, it happens to be that we have, as human beings, a certain kind of vocal system. We have certain organs, mostly in our head, in our mouth, in our throat, to produce a variety of different kind of sounds that can be separated from each other. We can most clearly recognize three phonetic families. We are looking at the beginning only at consonants. The earliest languages, the written languages, they only had symbols and writing for the consonants, and the vowels were just filled in. And we can distinguish
Like in Hebrew.
three clear families of consonants. Families divided into different groups based on which part of the mouth they are produced. And with the lips we can produce clearly two very different sounds. One is which is when you have your lips closed. It is a voiced consonant that can remain ringing for quite a long time, or a short time. If you look at the other sounds we can produce with lips, there's the second one. It is P, which is very different. It is still produced with the lips, but it is in the way that the closed lips are very quickly opened with at the same time letting out the air pressure, P. So the relationship between these two is that is holding the energy of this consonant, this sound. P is releasing the energy and putting the air pressure out very rapidly, and it's non-voiced. It doesn't have a voice that comes from the vocal cords in the throat, like the basic sound comes from the vocal cords. And then there is something that is between these two, which is B, which is semi-voiced. So you can hear in the beginning there is a little bit of voice, but then the voice stops and again the air is let out, but not with such pressure as it is with P. So we have three. We have something that holds the energy and is somewhat directed inwards, and then we have something that goes out, and then we have something that is a balance between those two. You may know that the word balance begins with the letter B.
Simple structure pieces. Male, female, and in between.
And then we have the same families, similar families of three phonetic sounds that can be produced first with the tip of the tongue against the back of the teeth. So we have, or on the top of the mouth, we have the soft sound of n, and it sounds very similar to n, but it is the other one is produced with the lips and the other one is produced with the tongue. And then we have t, which corresponds to p, t, p, t. And then again we have something in the middle, and that is D. Again there is a slight voice in the beginning, D, and then the voice stops and a slight air pressure is released, D.
You can see the three structures.
And the next similar family is in the back of the mouth, kind of a glottal area, where the corresponding sound to and is so that you close your throat in the back of your mouth. The other two,
it's the opposite of a
there is the which is similar to and t. And then there is the in between, which is g, g. Again there's a little voice, and then g, it's g, d, b. So we have these three balanced, and the three masculine. I'm saying it is masculine because it is outward active energy. So here we have 3 times 3 consonants, which could be seen as the basic building blocks of the sounds. So now I'm using 3 symbols to mark whether the sound is produced by the lips, the tongue, mouth, and I'm using 3 symbols to mark whether it is the voiced ringing sound, or whether it's the unvoiced, voiceless sound, or whether it's the balance between these two. And this creates a matrix of 3 and 3, and these putting together these symbols, we get 9 different kinds of marks. What is important here to notice is that now the marks for the letters and n are very similar. They are also very similar as sounds, but we need to distinguish them from one another. So let's add another arc to letter M, so we can clearly distinguish it from N.
This also adds the idea, if you'll look, of mama, memory. Hang down ma, that adds the feminine to it again. What would you add to it? Another line someplace. Well, it's got to be the M. And the reason is that M is the original sound for water. You know, these Phoenicians are the boat people, the water people. They have a lot of things attached to it. And if you look at the way M is waves on the water. And so it's an original concept. I believe something goes across the bottom here in a second, but it probably won't be in video. So here's the archetypes. We have those 9. There's a few more to add, and then vowels.
Now the thing is that these are not, in my view, and in the essence of the original language, they are not just phonetic values to this alphabet, but there's also these energies associated with them, energies that relate to the archetypical worldview. It was a study that I started doing about 2009. I was looking at mythological stories as part of another research I was doing for my book. And I noticed that the names of gods and goddesses and like sacred things in the ancient cultures, they somehow resembled each other regardless of where these cultures existed or whether they had any contact with each other based on our current knowledge, whether they had a contact or not. And then I got inspired to look at language through the art of sacred geometry, which is very much about archetypes. You have a certain kind of structure where different archetypes are located and how they are related to each other, and even how they can be concluded from each other.
And I've made a video before. You have to go way back and see it, but you can actually make the Hebrew language out of the Star of David. All of its bends, inner contortions, and lines make up what looks very, very similar to their original script. And so you can see how they could take something like that, and or before it, the Seal of Solomon, with its angular triangle lines and cutting across, making the Star of David itself out of it, that this comes from. And of course, David was known to have been a red-haired and ruddy guy that was from that area. So,
and some of the
Solomon too.
very well-known, maybe most commonly known archetypes are the 4 elements, which we usually call, at least here in the Western cultures, earth, water, air, wind, and fire. And obviously the feminine energy, which is receptive, something that takes in and gives birth from something that it takes in. It's a receptive energy, motherly energy, and we can easily conclude that the are the feminine kind of sounds, whereas the are clearly outward, protruding, active, masculine sounds.
And I could go into how the fact that you can take an original verb, and then you can take a verb and put a masculine, a verb and put a feminine. You can take a feminine verb masculine, so you can create things by words. And this is the original idea of the creation of words. And the fact that in the Hebrew Bible it says that the word of creation was all spoken out of vowels is the fact that without vowels you can't make the language into a spoken thing that people would understand, if you follow me.
Of course, then there is the neutral, if we talk about man and woman, then the neutral is like a child.
So you get the three symbols: the joining of a feminine and the masculine.
And then on the other side, we have the three different parts of the mouth, and through a very long and extensive study, I have come to the conclusion that these can be assimilated with the three elements of earth, water, and air, so that the sounds produced with the lips are the element of water, and the element of water is about movement. And it is also generally considered that the water element is about feelings and emotions.
And as it just went across the bottom, I don't know if you saw it, but M in its original ideogram was water, of course, and you see it in Egyptian things in too, but that's also spoken as a sound of M.
And then the sounds produced with the tongue are the element of air, and the air element is about thinking and the mind, and it is about space, and particularly location in space.
And the ancient symbol of in was for a fish, and a fish, and or an ideogram of a fish itself. And the concept was something that was separated from a haven and or located inside of water, or something that could have been located in the feminine. This attaches the idea of Sophia as the feminine of wisdom and how it attaches to it. And not being that a woman was the smart thing, but it's the feminine aspect of wisdom. Because there is a male archetypal form of attack and destroy and pull and give, and then there's a woman aspect of pull something in, create, and push out, if you follow me. And it's just linguistics.
And then, of course, the remaining, the glottal area, which produces the G sound, and K. This is the element of earth. And earth is about anything that concrete, physical, something with a shape. And as water is about emotions and air is about thoughts, then...
Also, I don't know if you saw it there, but G is also the ancient symbol for a camel. Its odd oblique on one edge was meant to symbolize the camel's hump. And of course, that hump is also a recession of water. So it's always evident in a few of these things in water. And it's while there were people, that were water worshippers, fire worshippers, all these type of things. It's how things connect linguistically and in your mind that make you believe certain things. And of course, you have to imagine this is primordial people thinking. And this is damn near magic. And what he is speaking now is the key of Solomon of linguistics.
This is about our body.
So, 3 states of matter, but there's fire also, and fire worship. It's important.
we are using an arc both for the feminine energy and the element of water, which is the most feminine element, and we are using this triangle or arrowhead both for the balanced energy and the earth archetype, which is the most neutral of the elements, and then we are using a diagonal line both for the masculine quality and the element of air, the most masculine of all the elements.
Enlil.
And now it is historically known that the receptive feminine energy is best described by a cup that receives a liquid or holds stuff in it. And the most obvious symbol for masculine energy is a stick or something that protrudes like a sword, and it is more active when it's diagonal instead of straight.
By contrast, you would see a crescent moon shape, designated as a feminine, seen in Inanna, Islam, and a lot through India, where the feminine aspect has been retarded or taken away from in the Hebrew area, and you see more masculine shapes. Stars can be seen by their diagonal and their many triangles put together as being an extreme neutral. Just by a linguistics point of view, because the people didn't seem very neutral, did they? But what's the male aspect? The sword.
And then the most balanced shape is a triangle, because when you have three corners, you have no opposites, you have a balanced space.
It's a unity situation. It's the reason they built the pyramids the way they did. Symbolic unity of man.
Is, at the moment still missing. Don't worry, it will come later. But now if we look at these different alphabets and the meanings of them, as we put together the elements and the feminine, masculine, neutral energies, we get certain kind of specific meanings for each of these 9 sounds. And so we can take a look at them, and we'll start with one example. We'll look at the letter M. M is, in many cultures, a sound that expresses affection between people, particularly, for example, the affection between a child and a mother. And in many languages, the word mother begins with an M, the most simple word being just ma, or ama, or And this...
It says there the Finnish original word for mama is emo, but in most every ancient language I've ever found, mama is, or ama, is the feminine or the mother aspect of every single one. And it's something that linguistic guys have looked over and said either they name themselves off of baby talk, or it just comes naturally, and or this is what they're talking about when Noah comes out as a baby speaking words, because Abba is my father, and all he'd have to do is go Mamba ma Abba, and they'd be like, wow, he said mom and dad, you know.
Supports the idea that M as a sound carries this motherly, feminine energy associated with feelings. And the opposite of M is the masculine P. So we have, as opposed to ma, we have pa, father, pa,
Papa.
pa. And this again supports that
Dada, Papa.
that the father is the masculine figure that is more active, more
as in
kind of
Adapa.
Energy. So now let's also include some of the element of fire. With the fire, it kind of surrounds these other elements, so you have fire on both sides. We have a masculine fire, which is expanding an expanding force, a manifesting force, and then we have the feminine fire, which is a suppressing, condensing energy that puts stuff together. Then the masculine energy, masculine fire and the feminine fire, a sound, what they bring to this is that they are still associated with these three families of the lip family, the tongue, and the glottal family, but they bring more or less a hissing element. So in the masculine side,